My name is Jessica, and I am 29 years old. I was 13 the first time I understood that something was wrong in my family, not in a dramatic way, not with shouting or cruelty, but in the quiet, hollow way that leaves you questioning your own presence. That year, my younger sister Kayla turned 15 and decided she loved horses. Overnight, our lives revolved around it. Riding lessons twice a week, glossy boots that smelled like new leather, a custom helmet with her initials engraved on the back. My parents threw her a themed birthday party with hay bales and a horse-shaped cake so realistic I remember people taking pictures of it before anyone dared to cut into it. I helped my mom hang decorations because that was what I did. I helped. My birthday came a month later. I got a card, a single cupcake from the grocery store, and a quick happy birthday while the TV played in the background. No candles, no song, no pictures. At first, I told myself it was timing, that they were tired, that money must be tight after Kayla's party. I always had an explanation ready. I always made excuses for them before they had to. But the pattern did not stop. It deepened. When Kayla wanted something, it appeared. When I wanted something, it became a discussion about responsibility, priorities, and sacrifice. In high school, Kayla got a Jeep for her 16th birthday. My dad handed her the keys in the driveway, while my mom cried and filmed it for Facebook. I asked if I could at least get my learner's permit. Dad told me to focus on my grades, so I got a job at a diner instead and walked there after school. No one asked where I was going every afternoon. No one asked how tired I was when I came home smelling like grease and coffee. At dinner, Kayla would talk about her day, and my parents would lean in, engaged, asking questions, laughing at her stories. If I tried to speak, the conversation would drift right past me like I hadn't opened my mouth at all. Eventually, I learned to stay quiet. Silence became easier than competing. College acceptance letters came senior year. I got into 4 schools. I picked the cheapest state university without telling anyone because I already knew the answer before I asked. Kayla got into her dream school in California. My parents threw her a going-away party with custom cupcakes and matching luggage. They co-signed her apartment, her credit card, everything. I took out loans and worked shifts at the campus library to survive. When I left for school, there was no party. Just my mom reminding me to call if I needed anything, which I never did. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I stayed low maintenance enough, they would notice eventually. I thought being easy would make me lovable. Instead, it made me invisible. After graduation, I struggled quietly. I didn't tell anyone about the rejection emails, the weeks of silence, the nights I cried in my car, wondering if I'd made a mistake, thinking I could do this on my own. My parents never asked how my job search was going. Meanwhile, Kayla landed a position at a fashion branding agency that seemed to exist entirely on Instagram. They were so proud of her. They posted about her career online like it was a family achievement. When I finally landed a job in real estate, no one mentioned it. Not once. There was a point last year when I lived in my car for 3 weeks to save enough money for a down payment. I showered at gyms and ate protein bars because they were cheap and filling. I never told my parents. I never told Kayla. I told myself that if I said it out loud, it would mean I'd failed. But I hadn't failed. I was just doing it alone. Last week, I walked up the steps of a small ranch house I bought entirely on my own. 3 bedrooms, a sunroom, a backyard with an old oak tree, and a swing already tied to one of its branches. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house smelled like fresh paint and possibility. I didn't cry. I just stood there and breathed, feeling something solid under my feet for the first time in my life. I took a photo, just my hand holding the keys against the front door. No caption, no announcement. I dropped it into the family group chat. 10 minutes later, it exploded. Kayla asked if it was a rental. My dad asked who bought it. My mom sent a thumbs up emoji. That was it. A thumbs up for the biggest thing I'd ever done. And somehow that hurt more than if she'd said nothing at all. The next morning, Kayla posted a vague Instagram story about people who think money makes them better than family. She didn't tag me, but she didn't have to. My mom called later, not to congratulate me, but to ask why I hadn't told them sooner. Why I'd kept it a secret if I was hiding something. I told her the truth. I wasn't hiding. I was just done explaining myself. That's when the calls started. Casual at first. Questions disguised as concern. How did you afford it? Did someone help you? Are you sure you didn't rush into this? I answered politely, vaguely. I worked, I saved, I hustled. What I didn't say was how much I'd sacrificed to get here, while Kayla was sipping cocktails at beach resorts, funded by the same parents who told me money was tight. A few days later, my dad called. That alone felt strange. He said he was proud of me, but his voice sounded stiff, like he was reading from a script. He asked about my income, my job stability, whether I had someone helping me with bills. I told him I was alone and that I liked it that way. He didn't say anything after that. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe they'd finally accept that I had my own life now. I was wrong. The following Sunday, I was in my backyard, trimming hedges, when I heard my front door open. I walked inside and found my parents and Kayla standing in my hallway like they belonged there. No call, no warning. My mom was already commenting on the living room. My dad asked about square footage. Kayla scrolled on her phone like she was bored. They weren't there to celebrate me. They were there to take something. And I knew it. They didn't sit down. None of them did. My parents stood in my living room like they were touring a model home, and Kayla leaned against the wall, scrolling through her phone, already acting like she was mildly inconvenienced by being there. I asked them, calmly, what they were doing in my house. My mom said they were worried about me, that I'd been distant lately, that this wasn't how family treated each other. She said it softly, like a practiced line. I didn't answer right away. I could feel something tightening in my chest. Not anger, not panic, but awareness. Kayla finally looked up and muttered that it must be nice to suddenly have money. My mom told her to hush, but the damage was already done. I could see it then, clear as day. This wasn't concern. It was curiosity mixed with resentment. They weren't proud. They were threatened. Then came the real reason for the visit. My mom clasped her hands together and smiled in that way she does when she's about to ask for something she's already decided I should give. Kayla's agency, apparently, had lost a major client. She'd been put on temporary unpaid leave. She was exhausted, burnt out, and needed a quiet place to stay while she figured things out. Somewhere safe, somewhere supportive. She gestured around my house like it was obvious, like this had always been the plan. I looked at Kayla. She didn't even bother pretending to ask. She just waited, confident, like she always was, like I was just a formality standing between her and what she wanted. I said no, just one word, calm, final. Kayla laughed, actually laughed, like I'd told a joke that didn't land. My mom frowned and asked me not to be dramatic. This was family. This was temporary. I didn't raise my voice. I opened the front door and waited. That's when Kayla called me selfish. She said I wouldn't even have this house if it weren't for our parents' sacrifices. She said I was hoarding success instead of sharing it. She said this was supposed to be family property, not a fortress to shut them out. I didn't argue. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed the pastries my mom had brought as a peace offering, and bagged them up. I handed the bags back to her and told them to leave. They did, but not before Kayla shot me a look that promised this wasn't over. 2 days later, I thought maybe they'd finally heard me. I sat in my sunroom with a candle lit, phone on silent, watching the light shift across the walls. For the first time since buying the house, I felt still, safe. That peace lasted exactly 48 hours. I pulled into my driveway on Thursday evening and saw it immediately. A bright red convertible parked diagonally across my driveway, like it was posing for a photo shoot. Kayla was leaning against the hood, sunglasses on, Starbucks cup in hand, scrolling through her phone. I stayed in my car, engine running, staring at her like she was a hallucination I hadn't earned. When I stepped out, she smiled and said she was moving in. Mom told her it was fine, just a few weeks. She even held up a key, my spare. The one I'd given my mom when I bought the house for emergencies. I felt sick. Inside, it was already wrong. Her shoes by the door, a duffel bag by the couch. My island smelled like her floral body spray. She'd connected to the Wi-Fi. She'd made herself at home. I told her to leave. She said I had space. I called my mom. She didn't deny giving her the key. She said I needed to learn to share. That night, Kayla ordered sushi on my DoorDash account and fell asleep in my guest room, which used to be my office. I locked my bedroom door. I didn't sleep. I didn't feel safe in my own house. The next morning, while Kayla was still asleep, I called a locksmith and scheduled a full rekey. Every lock. Front door, back door, garage, mailbox. I didn't warn her. I left for work before she woke up. She found out the hard way. By noon, my phone was blowing up. Furious messages, accusations, threats. When I got home, her car was gone. So were her things. I thought maybe that was the end. I was wrong again. That night, someone egged my house. 3 windows covered in yolk. My car had a fresh scratch down the side, deep and deliberate. I checked my security cameras. Whoever did it knew exactly where to stand to avoid them. Then came the voicemail. A blocked number. My mom's voice. Calm, clear. You think you're better than us now. You think money means you get to forget where you came from. That was the moment I understood this wasn't about hurt feelings. This was retaliation, and they were just getting started. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the front windows, half expecting headlights to sweep across the walls again. The egg stains were already drying into the paint, pale yellow ghosts that wouldn't scrub out completely. The scratch on my car caught the porch light every time I glanced outside, a thin silver wound running the length of the door. I kept replaying my mom's voicemail in my head, not the words themselves, but the tone. There was no hesitation, no guilt, just certainty, like she believed she was right to warn me. The next morning I drove to work in silence, windows cracked, despite the cold. I parked in the far back of the lot so no one would ask questions. My boss asked if everything was okay. I said yes. It was easier than explaining that my own family had decided my independence was a betrayal worth punishing. By lunch, I had 6 missed calls from my mom, 2 from my dad, and 1 video from Kayla I didn't open. I didn't need to. I knew it would be her, smiling, unbothered, like this was all some game she was winning by endurance. That night, I filed a police report. I didn't name names, just vandalism, harassment, a voicemail from a blocked number. The officer asked if I had enemies. I almost laughed. The harassment didn't slow down. It got creative. Kayla started showing up at my open houses, pretending to be a buyer, loudly asking if the neighborhood was family-friendly and whether the homes had enough space for selfish siblings. She left fake reviews on my real estate page, calling me unreliable and emotionally unstable. One stayed up long enough to spook a client. I lost the deal. That's when I hired a lawyer and sent a cease and desist. Kayla posted a photo of the envelope on Instagram with the caption, "When your sister would rather pay a lawyer than be a decent human." Then my dad called. He said I was tearing the family apart, that I was embarrassing them, that Kayla had nowhere else to go, and then he said it like a final card. "If you don't help your sister, don't bother coming to Thanksgiving." I said, okay. He didn't expect that. I don't think anyone had ever chosen not to show up before. Thanksgiving morning, I made pancakes. I watched a movie. I sat on my porch with coffee and listened to the wind move through the oak. Around noon, Kayla posted a photo. The whole family at dinner, candles lit, everyone smiling. And right there in the center of the table were my dishes. The blue and white set I'd bought after my first big sale. The ones I'd brought to my mom's house months earlier because hers were chipped. I hadn't taken them back because I thought it didn't matter. Now they were being used in a performance I wasn't invited to. That evening, my broker emailed me. An anonymous complaint had been filed against me, claiming I was emotionally volatile and hostile to clients, citing family instability. My listings were frozen for 72 hours while they reviewed it. 3 days of nothing. No income. No momentum. Just me sitting on my porch again, staring at the scratch on my car and realizing this wasn't going to stop on its own. That night, I drove to my parents' house. I didn't call. I didn't knock. I let myself in. They didn't hear the door over their laughter. The table was set with my dishes. Kayla was pouring wine like she owned the place. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I walked into the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and dropped the first plate. It shattered cleanly. I dropped the next, then another. The sound finally got their attention. I kept going until every plate was broken, blue and white shards covering the tile. Then I turned around and told them everything. Every ignored birthday. Every time money magically existed for Kayla but not for me. Every time I was told to wait, to be patient, to understand. I told Kayla she wasn't the victim, that her life had been built on other people fixing things for her, and I was done being one of them. I asked my mom why she hated me so much. She didn't answer. I broke the last plate and walked out. I blocked every number before I reached the highway. I expected guilt. I expected regret. What I felt instead was relief. For a week, it was quiet. Then the tone changed. Cards arrived, packages, Bible verses about forgiveness, likes from cousins I barely knew. My mom emailed about healing, then slipped in a question about helping Kayla find an apartment. I didn't respond. They showed up at my open house smiling, telling clients how proud they were of me. I told them to leave. I told them next time I'd file for a restraining order. They left, and for the first time, I think they understood I wasn't bluffing. But I also knew them well enough to know this wasn't surrender, it was strategy. Silence wasn't peace. It was the calm before the next attempt. The silence lasted exactly 19 days. I counted because when you grow up in a house where quiet always means something is coming, you learn to measure it. 19 days with no calls, no texts, no surprise packages on my porch, no cousins suddenly liking my photos. It felt unnatural, like the pause before a storm breaks open the sky. On the 20th day, my friend Maya texted me a screenshot. It was a Facebook post from my mom. A long one, carefully written, full of soft words and scripture. Forgiveness, grace, family being tested by pride and success. She never mentioned my name, but she didn't have to. Everyone knew who it was about. She wrote about how hard it is when children forget where they come from, when success changes people, when money builds walls instead of bridges. The comments were split, some sympathy, some quiet, stay strong. A few people I recognized from my childhood who had watched this dynamic play out for years, but never said a word. I didn't respond. I had learned that responding was oxygen. 2 days later, Kayla escalated. She didn't show up at my house. She didn't key my car. She went after my reputation instead. A new anonymous complaint appeared, this time to my licensing board. Allegations of emotional instability, poor judgment, unprofessional conduct tied to ongoing family conflict. It was vague enough to sound credible. My stomach dropped when I read the email. An investigation meant time. Time meant lost listings. Lost listings meant lost income. This wasn't about forcing me to help her anymore. This was punishment. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the screen until the sun went down. Then I did something I'd never done before. I stopped protecting them. I called my lawyer and told her everything. The childhood patterns, the favoritism, the sabotage, the vandalism, the fake reviews, the open house stunt, the plates, all of it. She listened quietly and then said, "We're done playing defense." She helped me compile documentation, screenshots, voicemails, police reports, timestamps, witness statements from neighbors and clients. We submitted a formal response to the board with evidence attached. Not emotional, not angry, just facts. The investigation was dropped within a week. That should have been the end. Any normal family would have taken the loss and stepped back. Mine didn't know how to do that. They needed the narrative to end with them as victims and me as the villain. So Kayla tried one last angle. She called my boyfriend, Aaron. I didn't know until he came over that night with his jaw clenched and his phone in his hand. He played the voicemail for me without saying a word. Kayla's voice was syrupy, almost sweet. She said she was worried about me, that I was spiraling, that I was isolating myself, that he should be careful because I had a history of cutting people off and overreacting. She said she just wanted to make sure he was safe. Aaron deleted the message after playing it. He looked at me and said, "She's trying to scare me into controlling you." I laughed, but it came out shaky. That was the moment I realized how far they were willing to go. They weren't trying to fix anything. They were trying to replace control they'd lost. That weekend, I changed my number. I installed new cameras. I set my social media to private, and for the first time in my life, I let myself grieve. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, for the family I'd never really had but kept hoping would show up someday. A week later, a letter arrived, handwritten. My mom's handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the counter for hours. When I finally did, it was exactly what I expected. No apology, just sadness, confusion. How she didn't understand how things had gone so wrong, how she missed me, how Kayla was struggling. And then, buried near the end, the real reason. If you could just help her get back on her feet, maybe we could all move forward. I folded the letter back into the envelope and put it in the trash. That night, Aaron asked me if I was okay. I told him the truth. I said I felt lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because I wasn't carrying them anymore. Heavier because letting go meant admitting they were never going to change. He kissed my forehead and said, "You're not wrong for choosing peace." I believed him. The next morning I woke up without dread. No checking my phone, no bracing for impact, just sunlight in the sunroom and the sound of the porch swing creaking in the breeze. For the first time, the silence didn't feel like a warning. It felt earned. But I still knew one thing. Families like mine don't stop believing the story belongs to them. They just wait for a better moment to tell it again. The quiet didn't break this time. It settled. Weeks passed, then a month, No calls, no messages, no surprise appearances at my work or my listings. Kayla stopped posting cryptic quotes. My mom's Bible verses dried up. My dad went silent completely. It was the first time in my life I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop, and that alone felt unreal. I kept expecting to feel regret, guilt, that ache people talk about when they cut off family. But what I felt instead was space to think, to breathe, to exist without constantly explaining myself or defending my choices. My house started to feel different, not just cleaner or quieter, but safer, like it finally belonged to me in a way it never had before. Work stabilized. The board closed my case officially and sent a formal notice clearing my record. Clients who'd gone quiet came back. New ones followed. The damage Kayla tried to do fizzled out when it didn't get the reaction she wanted. Drama needs an audience. I stopped buying tickets. Aaron stayed steady through all of it. He never pushed me to forgive or reconnect. Never said, "But they're your family." One night, sitting on the porch swing with our legs tangled together, he said something that stuck with me. Family isn't who gets access to you by default. It's who earns it by how they treat you. No one had ever put it that clearly before. Thanksgiving came and went. I didn't get an invite. I didn't ask for one. I made dinner at home with Aaron. We burned the first batch of rolls, laughed about it, ate pie straight out of the pan. It wasn't loud. It wasn't performative. It was peaceful. A few days after Thanksgiving, I got one last message. Not from Kayla, not from my mom, from my dad. Just 4 words. I hope you're happy. I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no accusation in it, no apology either. Just a quiet attempt to pull something out of me. Reassurance, doubt, guilt. I didn't respond. For once, my happiness didn't need to be explained or justified. December rolled in with cold mornings and early sunsets. I decorated my house the way I wanted to. No themes, no matching sets, just things that made me smile. A small tree, soft lights, music playing while I cooked. I realized I'd spent most of my life performing happiness for people who were never satisfied. This felt real. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Kayla had moved again, that she was finding herself, that my parents were telling anyone who'd listen that I'd changed, that money had gotten to me, that I'd abandoned them. I let them have that story. It cost me nothing. One evening, while cleaning out a drawer, I found an old photo. Me and Kayla as kids, sitting on the hood of our parents' car, ice cream melting down our hands. For a moment, I felt that familiar tug, the what if, the version of us that might have existed if things had been different. I put the photo back in the drawer and closed it. Some chapters don't need to be erased. They just don't need to be reread. On New Year's Eve, Aaron and I stood in the backyard watching fireworks from a distance. I made a quiet resolution that had nothing to do with money or success. I promised myself I wouldn't chase people who didn't choose me. Not family, not anyone. It's been months now. No contact, no emergencies, no sudden reconciliations. Just life, unfolding at a pace that finally feels like mine. I don't know if my parents ever understood what they lost. I don't know if Kayla ever will. And for the first time, I don't need to know. Because the truth is simple, even if it took me years to accept it. I wasn't invisible. I was just surrounded by people who refused to see me. Walking away didn't make me selfish. It made me free. And this time, I'm not going back.